So why are we so excited about space travel? Why does it capture our imagination so? From the time that we're children throughout adulthood, this is something that's very interesting and exciting. So we have this idea that we have to always feel like we're exploring new worlds, new civilizations, right? New life, to go where no man or no one has gone before. And to do this, you need a spaceship. When you travel, maybe at warp speed, you're traveling all around, or maybe you go through a wormhole and you travel. Maybe you go and you find yourself in the Delta Quadrant, like in Star Trek Voyager, the opposite side, far, far away from Earth, and you're exploring unexplored terrain. Everything is different. So where does this come from, and where can we source this this feeling, this idea in the Torah, in the Bible? So we have a character, that very much typifies this idea of traveling to space. What's to a space? What's space? Space is something that's very inhospitable. You have to be very careful when you travel to space. You have to do everything just right. There's no air to breathe. You can't just carry on your life. Everything is very severe, very cold. Everything, you have to be very careful. You have to have the proper technology and the proper training, months and years of training in order to do it successfully. And so this was Joseph. This was Joseph. When it says that when he was sold as a slave into Egypt, the Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim, which comes from the same root as Meitzarim, as constraints. It's a very constraining place, very strict place, this Egypt. But it's also related to a womb, the womb. And a person goes through a gestation period, a maturation, until they're able to be born, until they're able to be mature and enter the world as a full-grown person. From a childlike state to an adult, to a proper adult who can lead. And that's Joseph. So after he was in the dungeon and he properly, successfully interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, so then he became the effective king of Egypt, the viceroy of Egypt. But it has to go through that period, that gestation period, the feeling of being in the womb. So we could say that all this feeling of wanting to go into space, wanting to be subsumed, enter this area of space, is like the feeling of going back to the womb. On the one hand, it's very constricting, but on the other hand, it's very cleansing, because to be reborn, to view ourselves as new. And what's the greatest thing that we could? What's the greatest thing about being reborn like today as an adult is that we see the world with wonder. Everything is wondrous, right? We have to be open to discovery. So the first thing of someone who is interested in science fiction, discoveries, is someone who has a sense of wonder, right? There's wonders to explore, to uncover. That's the first thing. The second is to know that you have to enter a space, and that's like Joseph, to enter the space of Egypt, but it's going to be very hard. It's not going to be easy. But eventually it's going to be for the sake of some type of a personal and communal redemption. Like in the life of Joseph, this is the greatest, he had the great character development, it's called. We saw him as a boy who fussied over his appearance, but then he became this great, holy, special leader of the Jewish people, and effectively the king of Egypt at the same time. as being someone who was very, very influential in saving his own family from famine. So what do we learn from all of this? So there's a good metaphor for this. There was a Star Trek series in the 90s called Deep Space Nine. And initially the fans didn't understand why in every episode they're not traveling somewhere. Star Trek is supposed to be you get in a spaceship, a starship, and you go somewhere at warp speed. You travel somewhere through a wormhole. Somewhere you end up somewhere new. But here they were at the space station, episode after episode after episode, and sure, you have visitors, but you have a couple dozen rotating main characters, and you see these characters time and time again. And why are we still here on this Deep Space Nine near a wormhole? It's very interesting. I understand it's a thoroughfare. A lot of people are traveling here. But I want to travel. I'm not watching Star Trek in order to be in one place. So we can say the deeper meaning behind that is the same thing as the producers and the writers said at the time, is that this is a show, it's going to be a show about character development. We're going to explore the characters, but we're going to do it in space. Just so happens to be that we're in space instead of on land. Why do we need to be in space? There's a lot of shows that explore character development, but they're not set in space. So again, this is the life of Joseph, that he had to travel to Egypt. He had to travel to this place of constraints, a very strict place, and but then to grow. This is being in the state of the womb. This is the feeling of entering space psychologically. Is the feeling, according to Kabbalah, again, is the feeling of entering the state of being in the womb and being able to be reborn, being freed from the dungeon, as was the case with Joseph, or being freed from the constraints within space, or that from those constraints of Egypt or space, we're able to really access our full potential and to really see the world more clearly, bring out the oneness of all of creation, that everything is God. From these trials and tribulations, from these tests, this is what brings out that pure belief and knowledge in the oneness of God. So again, Deep Space Nine. So what's nine? So 9 is also related to Joseph. 9 is the ninth sphera of the divine conduit or channel, which God uses as a creative tool to create all of reality. It's called the sphera, the divine channel of Yesod, of foundation. And the figure that relates to that sphera, of that divine channel, is Joseph. So whenever we think of 9, we think of Joseph, just to say it simply. So Deep Space Nine. What is the deep space of 9? This is the deep space that Joseph, he went deep into Egypt, deep into the dungeons of Egypt, and he came out reborn, and as a leader within Egypt, and someone that was someone who saved his entire family from starvation.